Most likely when creating conflicts in RPGs, the most complex you've gotten is the players as the protagonists and the villain as the antagonists. Black versus white, us versus them, good versus evil, what have you. But if you have the creative chops to try out something different, and the game isn't just a kick in the door and slay the goblin type of thing, there's another technique I think could be helpful for you, and that's the four corners of opposition. This one is not always an easy writing technique to work in, but if you manage to do it, you'll probably manage to create something truly amazing. For games with more complex social interactions than just kill the bad guy, this can help get you away from the more simple hero versus villain opposition. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Classic hero tales do it all the time, but this will add more depth to your story. One of the earlier ideas for this concept comes from John Truby in his book The Anatomy of Story. In it, he writes, "In average or simple stories, the hero comes into conflict with only one opponent. This standard opposition has the virtue of clarity, but it doesn't let you develop a deep or powerful sequence of conflicts, and it doesn't allow the hero to act in a larger society. Four-corner opposition has the added benefit of representing a complete society in miniature, with each corner personifying one of the basic pillars of that micro-society. Using a system like this is far better for a game with, as I said, complex social interactions, where decisions are not black and white, but rather focus on the pros and cons of those actions and how they impact their place in the world around them. Really basically, here's how it works. Take the general core philosophy of the game you're making. We'll use an example I have from my Eberron campaign involving the extremist group in the Blood of Vol, that death is just a scam by the gods and the people should embrace undeath instead. Split this whole thing into opposing viewpoints, just like if you had had a single antagonist. Maybe the PCs are against the thought of everyone being turned into zombies, vampires, and liches, but the other side is all for it. Normally, we just leave it here. This is your protagonist and antagonist. But in this case, we're splitting this again, making a pro and a con part for each side. 99% of the time, your protagonists will rest here, the pro side of the first viewpoint. In my Eberron example, that would be that life is good, undeath is evil, and they want to save most people from being turned into the mindless undead, with a few intelligent undead on the top. Now, we fill in the other corners. Your classic antagonist, which is the opposition in every way to your PCs, will generally go here, the negative of viewpoint 2. In this case, undeath is necessary, sacrifices need to be made, all in the name of power and immortality, no matter the cost. Classic bad guys stuff, right? We still have two more corners to fill. Firstly, there's the negative of viewpoint 1. This is an entity or group of entities that agree with the PCs. Undeath bad, living good. But they take it in a bad direction. Maybe they want to go to an extreme by saying the entire country of Karrnath and even the surrounding area of adjacent countries should just be wiped out. Undead and living alike. Innocent and guilty alike. Also that their viewpoint is the only one that exists. The negative of viewpoint 1 both agrees with the protagonists, but does it in such a way that it would still be in conflict with the protagonists. The PCs in this scenario, seeing thousands of innocent peasants being killed along with everyone else, is probably seeing this as a bad idea. To help figure out a negative side of viewpoint 1, ask yourself simply, what are the drawbacks of viewpoint 1, and what may be the darker side of this viewpoint that the protagonists wouldn't have. Then we have the positive of the second viewpoint, someone with the opposing view of the players. Ask yourself, what are the actual benefits of the second viewpoint, and what moral, ethical, or intellectual property of this viewpoint would the protagonist struggle with? In my example, I eventually introduced an old Karrnathian unit of soldiers that had accepted the gift of undead. But as peaceful NPCs, they didn't want to fight, and they can tell stories of the struggles of the last war in Karrnath, and how Karrnath was losing and its people being slaughtered, how there weren't enough hands to work the fields to feed everybody, and how the undead, despite all its flaws, helped the living to live and the country to continue. By having these 4 differing viewpoints, you create a more intricate web of conflict, and the corners don't just have to have one NPC or group of NPCs. By introducing many characters or groups into the story in all corners of these viewpoints, you as the GM have an easy way to structure your interactions with player characters and create a far greater social structure for introducing what I think is the most important element of an RPG: drama. As always, it's important not to let the players peek behind the curtain. They don't have to know what sort of notes or structure you have on each NPC. They just get to interact with the NPCs and get a general gist of their behaviors through actual communication. The structure is for you as the GM to make it easier on yourself. And there you have it, 4-corner opposition, a way to add some complexity to your NPCs instead of just being black versus white, us versus them. Alright. Usual YouTube BS here. I don't like saying it, but it does actually work. So if you like my content, please hit the subscribe button and like button below. Don't forget to check out my book on DriveThruRPG. I've got a couple more coming out in the next few months, hopefully, one of which is System Agnostic, and then I've got another Cypher book coming out as well soon. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, and have a good one, eh?